Welcome to Two Steps Back with Nicole and Kat. Whee! It's a podcast.
Hi, everybody! Brought to you by the seasonal cold.
And Theo.
And
Always
Theo.
Theo.
Audience impact 10% still present for the wrap up of 2024. But of course, we're back with another book episode. So, our last book episode, our book of the month, was Betty by Tiffany McDaniel.
Where we got
and
noticed by the author.
I know, guys. Like, Tiffany herself messaged in both of our videos on our Instagram page at Two Steps Back Podcast. And she was like, oh, thank you so much for featuring Betty. And my mom, Betty, sends her regards. And when I sent it to Nicole, she's like, ito pala ang feeling na nagpa-fangirling moment.
Namawis kilikili ko.
It was so sweet, but that was such a touching moment, and we really enjoyed that book conversation. Like, we really dove deep into the topics that were discussed, how it made us feel, the emotional roller coaster that it was. So I think to change up the pace a little bit for our next book of the month, mas lighter.
Yes.
But with heavy topics.
Yeah, it still brought me anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll be a much more lighthearted conversation. So our book of the month this time around is
The Wedding People
by
Alison Espach.
Wow.
Espach. So sorry for
If
butchering
you're the
that.
author and you're watching this,
So
yeah.
sorry. So I found this book off of a recommendation off of Book Talk. The same girl that we followed, Brady. Siya nag-recommend to. So when I saw it, I was in Canada yata for one of my travels. And Canada? LA. No, I was in LA. I bought this in LA. Sorry. Narito na ako. And I saw this and I was like, ooh, I want to read that. I had no context of what it was about. But knowing that it was a good read, I picked it up. And when I read it, I really loved it. And I was like, Beshi, you have to read it. So Nicole read it and
really read through it really quick. As in, page turner siya for me. And I was surprised that you picked that up, actually, because that was not in my radar at all. Pero yeah, very, very fun read. It is, ikaw na ito, is in charge of the synopsis. This is why I can't do chismis, guys. Because I'm really bad at, like, breaking down the timeline. Yeah, I can't be part of the Marites group. So,
the details were lost.
CZ Cat.
Okay, so The Wedding People follows our protagonist. Her name is Phoebe, and she is a late 30 aged woman who is booking herself into an idyllic hotel in Rhode Island with nothing but a silk dress and a pair of heels that she's wearing, no luggage, no anything, because she plans to unalive herself.
Real dark.
It's quite a dark premise, but the topics in this book are handled with so much care and lightness. Not to make light of it, but there is an interjection of humor here, and it's refreshingly real, the dialogue that Phoebe has with herself.
Even the dark thoughts. Na parang, where did that come from? But yeah, if I was alone with my thoughts, like the scariest ones, it'll be those.
Yeah, so I think this book allowed us to feel really seen, because her main predicament, other than her husband leaving her after many rounds of failed IVF in a marriage that I feel that she talks about, she really appeased her husband. Whatever he wanted, she went along with. She's quite a people-pleasing personality. And then, so she really sacrificed a lot of herself.
Yeah.
She dulled herself down. I don't think realizing what she was doing.
Because it didn't feel like a sacrifice because you love the person so much and you're each other's world. So you don't see it as sacrifice. You see it as love.
And then when she's washed up in the affair that happens between her husband and another woman who actually is a friend of theirs.
And ka-workmate nila. Actually, kaya ko siguro pagka-friend, pero yung workmate mo pa kasi you have to let go of a job that you're in.
Yeah, and it was a job as well that she talks a lot about not really feeling fulfilled because it's almost like a filler job because she's supposed to be writing this book on Victorian literature And she just loses the motivation to write it. She doesn't have any motivation to do it. She feels ashamed for it. So she just finds herself washed up in this part of her life where she's like, I have nothing going for me. I've been left by the love of my life. I'm not wanted. I don't have anything to offer.
And her cat died. That was the trigger of it all.
Yeah,
Like, that was the
their
last
baby.
the last straw.
So this is the premise that we enter into the wedding people. So this hotel that she checks into for one night in Rhode Island, the whole hotel is booked out by a wedding of this bridezilla type character who was booked out the whole hotel but seemed to have a lapse in judgment and not book that one room. So when she's there, the bride just assumes, oh, you're a part of the party. Hi. Like, just she's doing the rounds. She's how would you describe the bride? What is her name?
Lila. She is like super perfect talaga. Siya yung kinaiinggitan mo na girl. Ganon. And then perfectionist din siya and very curated yung buong life niya. Aesthetic. Kaya with the whole wedding planning talagang on point siya and she doesn't want anything to go wrong. So when she finds out that ano pangalan ng main character? Phoebe wants to unalive herself on her wedding.
She's like, no, don't do it. Why would you be so selfish? Can you just not?
Yeah.
Parang ganon. Like, can you just not? This is my wedding. You're gonna ruin it. So it's funny. It's really funny the way that this whole situation is thrown together. But then Lila herself is also a very strange character because when you first meet her, she seems very pretentious. Like, she's been left like this big grant from her past father that's like $1 million to have this wedding of a century. So you would think like, oh, it's a motivation. They want to celebrate their love. But then you start to realize as you read, they're not really in love.
Or they're practically in love.
Yeah. It's like ticking a box for each other for different reasons.
Yeah. And I have so many questions about that, which we'll dive into later on. Pero the characters here, I love that they are not one-dimensional. Like, for example, the main character, si Phoebe, she's not a Debbie Downer all throughout. Para she doesn't feel heavy, even if typically that's how other books would write her.
Right.
And then si Lila is, like bound to be annoying, pero she's not. Like, she's just real. Tapos may pinanguhugutan yung actions niya. So I love the multidimensionality, big word, of the characters in this book. That's why it's been such a fun read because it's like layer by layer yung characters. Even the sister of the groom, si Marla.
Yeah.
Like, it's so twisted. Like, sobrang, siya, conservative, government. Mayor
She
ata
had
siya,
an
no?
affair.
Mayor. Yeah. Tapos yung the things she did to save her marriage. So, yeah. Anyway.
So it's a really relational story because you get to know the guests from the wedding, so the different family members, and then there is a interaction that happens with Phoebe and a man in a hot tub at the hotel where they just like really hit it off. They have a conversation that's just easy and she's like, I want to sleep with this guy. So she says it to him. She's like,
yeah, which is unlike her.
No, it's very unlike her. So the Phoebe that we're discovering at this point, she's no holds back. Like, she's like, what have I got to lose? Like, I've always lived my life for others. So, bahala na. Like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want to do.
Yeah.
And the guy rejects her in a nice way naman. And then she's just like, well, at least I tried. Only to find out the next day,
he's the groom. Dun, dun, dun.
So just seeing how it all plays out is really interesting because I think the book could have gone away to make that the kind of anchor in which the whole cuento would sit on. Like,
which I would
are
hate.
they, aren't they going to end up together? Are they gonna like ruin this upcoming wedding? Are they gonna say what they feel and just, are they gonna say what they feel and like just ruin all of the plans? But it didn't. The book revolves around Phoebe rediscovering herself. It's like, what do I want? What brings me joy? Like, who am I gonna serve in this moment? Myself or other people? And as someone who is a people pleaser all up to that moment, or like all the way up to that moment, it's so liberating to see her internal dialogue and how she's like choosing to build herself up from the lowest of lowest points of her life. And that's what I really resonated with. I thought it was really a raw, unfiltered look into the messy parts of healing, told in a way that wasn't super bigat.
Yeah. Pero what are the emotions that triggered you?
Ooh, well, I think as someone who does have some people pleasing tendencies, I was telling you, it was the thought that you are present and consciously taking part in every decision that built up to that point, only to look around at your life and see it and say, I don't like it. Because, I mean, Phoebe was there. She built this life with this other person. And as it fell apart, she was consciously there in every decision, but it wasn't hers. Like when she looked around at her life, it's like it wasn't hers. She couldn't take ownership of it because she was trying to do it for other people, or do it for the husband, do it for what a good wife should do, or a good teacher, because she's a teacher. Yeah.
And she couldn't have seen that either unless they actually broke up.
Yeah.
Diba? Which they did. So, like, yung hurt really showed her the truth eventually, which was part of her healing. Na parang, parang hindi rin naman pala ganun ka wow yung nawala sa akin.
And it's also like a picture of giving yourself grace, because sometimes when we end up in a situation in our lives, it's like, if only I knew better back then. But the thing is, you wouldn't come to that realization at all. Like, you had to go through it to figure out that, oh, so this is how that got me here, and these are the only lessons that I can learn at this point. I couldn't have been wiser back then because there was no wisdom yet to be had. And then when I passed this on to you, I was like, sis, it talks about marriage in a way that I think it's gonna confront us both.
Yeah, and as 30-something-year-old unmarried women, I was like, why did you pick this book? It's triggering. But seriously, like, the emotions that it brought up to the surface for me, everything I fear about marriage is tackled in this book. Like, I would always remember, like, boys would always say, gusto ko ng simpleng babae that I could just be happy with. I want this simple life. And that was the reason why Phoebe and her husband did get married. It's like, okay, I'll be happy with this little life. This little life. And then suddenly the husband starts saying, when he started winning awards and stuff for his writing, suddenly he's like, let's do something fun. Diba? Si Phoebe was like, it suddenly became all about doing something fun
and spontaneous.
Yeah.
And so she was like, wait, this is really who he is? Is this who he is without me?
Parang nag-change yung needs niya. And I'm so scared of becoming the boring person in the relationship. And you don't actually know at which point you become a boring person. Na parang feeling ko sometimes I try so hard to, like, achieve the next goal.
Yeah.
Kasi I need to be spectacular all the time. Sis! Diba? Tapos parang ang gulo kasi in a marriage, you eventually outgrow each other, and kahit naman individually, hindi same pace ng life nyo. And then suddenly, you're in a marriage and it's still not gonna be the same pace. Lucky kayo if it is. I think before, it's highly possible because the choices were quite limited compared to now.
Yeah.
So, parang now I feel like it's so much harder. And I'm like, what if ma-outpace ako ng husband ko?
Yeah.
And then I'm left behind, which is Phoebe. Like, she pretends to write in her office.
Yeah.
Tapos pagka-uwi na, oh my God, the dreaded question na,
how's your writing going?
What did you do today? So parang, there are times na wala akong ginagawa in a day. Like, I will just read. This guilty pleasure ko siya. Kasi diba hosting, hindi naman siya everyday.
Yeah.
And then my boyfriend would ask me na, what did you do today? Na parang, were you productive? Ganon. Tapos I'll be so stressed na parang, I finished the book.
That's productivity for me. No, but it's true, especially in our line of work that is so sporadic. I totally understand, because, like, if you're with someone who has maybe a more structured 9 to 5,
or you tuloy-tuloy for a long, yung parang months, yung contract ng work, yung ganon.
Yeah, and I totally get it. And I think one of the points that you're bringing up is maybe outpacing each other in a relationship, or like you are developing and growing, but then you forget how to discover and learn about each other because you've been in a not mundane, but like you've been with this person for so long. They're like, I know this person. I know what they like, what they don't like. But it's evolving pala. So yeah, there was a curtain pulled back on the relationship here with Phoebe, and then the fallout from that and how she felt discarded. You know how they had the meeting with the divorce lawyer, and her husband was just like, okay, so that's it. And she was like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like her internal monologue of like, you must not even care about me. Like I chiseled down myself to fit you perfectly only to be discarded, and now I don't even like the shape of myself. It was like that. And so and then when the cat died, which was like their baby because they couldn't have children, which I think drove wedges into their relationship that they weren't able to resolve. I feel like she just felt like a shell of a person. But it's so interesting because the husband comes back.
Yeah. Binalikan siya.
Because she doesn't answer the phone calls and stuff. And he's like, I'm worried about you. Answer the phone. Are you okay? Blah, 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 blah. And then he just shows up.
She's always conveniently there.
Yeah. She's accessible.
Yeah.
And then the husband comes in and is still calling her his wife. And he wants to be back. He wants the comfort again. Like, he didn't realize what he had until it was gone.
Which is what she wanted talaga.
Initially.
Like, yun yung fantasy niya in her head.
But then when she gets it back for like 2 days or a day, she realizes it's not what she wants anymore.
Yeah. Pero sarap na feeling na yon.
Oo, medyo...
Yun na-outgrow mo.
Yeah. Diba? Very validating.
Yeah.
I was like, screw you, husband.
Yeah. And I think yun talaga, alam mo, naka-move on ka na kasi it's not based on feelings lang na, I don't feel sad or hurt anymore. It's more of, I don't fit into that shell anymore. I can't go back and piece it together to fit that mold anymore. And just the thought of going back to it makes you so scared na ang liit-liit pala ng buhay ko noon. Like, I made it so small.
Yeah.
Diba? Pero going back to the people-pleasing tendencies, because I feel like tayong dalawa, we're people-pleasers in the relationship.
Yeah, we are. Just eager to please.
Shucks! We're so serval! Happy to serve kami!
Ang lakas lang.
Pero feeling ko, sis, if I got married at like at the age I wanted to get married, which was like 26, ganon, I might have ended up like Phoebe. Kasi like, up until today, I really thought na, as long as, I live like Phoebe na I fit myself into the other person, my partner's world. Parang, I have my own life. And it's a big life na, alam mo yon.
Yeah.
Pero at the same time, parang nako-contain ko rin siya eh.
Yeah.
Parang, iba pagka nasa relationship ka, the person you choose to be with for the rest of your life, yun na yung magiging pace ng buong life mo.
Yeah, because I think
diba?
also it's our positioning as women in a relationship that like we're not meant to take the lead, or even if we do, we're meant to be a complementer. Do you think that's a unique woman experience?
Ay, kanina nga naisip ko, di ba yun, paano ko na-outpace ako ng husband ko? What if ako ma-outpace ko yung husband ko? Diba?
Ibang dynamic din
feeling ko
yun.
magpo-pull back ka rin. Kasi I have spoken to women also na who have become really successful. Kasi yung success naman, honestly, it's huge part luck din yan eh.
Oo.
Diba? Parang you didn't know that it'll just get that big. So, okay, yeah, it's kahit na pareho naman kayo hardworking. Tapos marami tayong women in the industry na yung husbands, yung nagiging complementary sa work nila. Kasi parang hindi, di ba, you need a helpmate then.
Yeah.
Tapos sabi nung girl sa akin na, kaya parang they franchise this type of business na mas pang guys. Yung very manly business.
Yeah.
Diba? Kasi para balance. Ganon. So parang kung naging successful yung wife, sinashare
Yeah.
sa husband na parang, okay, hanap tayo ng paraan.
Yeah.
Kasi hindi naman ako mawawalan pagka, nag-share din ako dyan. So, yung ganung, pero, sortihan din yun eh, di ba? Parang not everyone is lucky to have the resources to balance out economic standings in a relationship.
That's very true. So it's I think it presents like a very unique dilemma that's as unique as the people within it. But it's that's definitely, I can see that it's a fear that would echo with both of us, because we also have very public careers that publicness can translate to success or like ingay. Whereas if you're dating someone who maybe has like
a stable job.
Yeah, it could maybe be outshined, or people question like, ay, bakit yung partner mo naging ganyan lang yung trabaho nila?
Shucks.
Kasi sometimes like people be like, ay, dapat Hollywood actor yung madodate mo, whatever, para ma-level. So there's also perception of like society that falls onto that as well, which I think affects a relationship if you're in it then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting to see how Phoebe would rebuild her perception of what a life well lived looks like for her on her own terms, and to see that level of growth from something that, it was just like, I just wish that I could go back to being wanted by my husband, or just being comfortable, and then when he actually wants her, she doesn't want it anymore. But I think that another interesting dynamic as well here was how Phoebe the character navigated grief, but also allowed that grief to be a point of connection for the younger sister of the groom, si Juice.
The daughter.
Yes, the daughter, sorry.
Yeah.
The daughter of Gary. Juice is her nickname. Ano ba ang name niya? Like, real name niya? Basta Juice yung
Juice.
nickname.
She prefers to be called Juice. Like the drink.
So there's a really lovely, touching story about family within the book where the groom, Gary, has a daughter, Juice, and his wife actually passed, his first wife, from a sickness? Yeah. So they also are navigating grief. And then there's that whole dynamic of now Gary is getting remarried, supposedly to Leela. And Juice is like, but you cannot replace my mom, kind of thing. But I think it's wonderful because sometimes when, like, Phoebe's going obviously through a really hard time, but she uses like what she's going through in a way to connect to Juice. Like, I understand what grief feels like. I understand like that feeling of loss. And is able to connect with her on that. And I just thought that was really like heartwarming, because when we go through such hard things, sometimes it's hard to see the purpose in it. Because sometimes it has to feel like, oh, why did I have to go through this? Like, this was so horrible and so hard. But sometimes it gives you the authority to speak to another person in a healing way, or being able to like touch them through your story, to be like, I went through something really similar, and maybe this is what I did, or you're just not alone in what you're feeling. So I really enjoyed that.
I love that. Yung parang shared grief.
Yeah.
There is power in shared grief.
Yeah, which is kind of contradictory if you would think about it, but it's true. Like, you can feel incredibly seen by someone who's gone through something similar.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Okay, going to the cast of characters this time. Kasi pinakita talaga yung side of the characters that are toxic. So how do we relate? Or anong part of those characters do we see in ourselves as well?
Ooh.
So for example, see Phoebe as a people pleaser, and then Lila as a perfectionist. So parang very perfectionist in her relationship naman, na siya yung nagli-lead as opposed to Phoebe who follows. Kasi parang nangyari, si the groom, yung grief niya sa nag-pass away niya na wife, parang he needed someone to have a direction. Tapos gusto niya this time, siya naman mag-follow.
Yeah.
Kaya feeling ko valid pa rin yung love story nila ni Lila.
Yeah.
Diba? Kasi parang yun din pinakita ng book na, for example, is there a right reason for being married? I mean, yes, meron. Pero kunwari yung setup nila was, nung kinompare nila how they decided to get married, si Matt and si Phoebe, they were just like, spontaneous.
Okay, yeah.
Pakasal na tayo. Chay. Yeah. Pwede naman ganun lang eh.
For the whim of it. For the hope of it all.
Diba? Parang, yun lang naman yun eh.
Yeah.
Tapos yung kay Lila and Gary, medyo may pagka-setup siya. Pero shared grief din siya kasi na si
The dad
Lila
was getting
lost,
sick,
lost her dad. Tapos naging parang fate na doctor niya is this groom.
Yun nga.
Yun.
But then
So,
it ended up being a weird dynamic as well. Kasi umasa siya sa doctor, si Gary, that he would save her dad.
Yeah. Pero parang, ayun nga, they both acted on their grief.
Yeah.
Na parang, would you say it's a wrong kind of love din naman if it was what they needed at that time?
Ako, for me, it's not right because even though like we have the responsibility to deal with our crap and trauma as much to our ability, sometimes we don't have the resources or the awareness. But like I just don't know if anything great comes out of two unhealed people trying to like band-aid each other from what they're feeling at the moment. Ako lang, especially considering there was a child involved, si Juice. Like, so I don't know, for me. But I totally get your point. Like, it's the practicality. And that is the reality in many marriages and some that really last the like test of time. Like, they were either set up by their families or like they really just ticked each other's boxes, and maybe like it wasn't that passionate, sparking love that, you know, is in the books, but it had that.
It works.
Yeah, it works. So yeah, I think it also depends.
Yeah. Yung danger lang doon is if you are only connected, yun lang yung nagtatay sa inyo. Which is, it wasn't so obvious in the writing eh, na parang, yun lang yun. It really is quite complicated kasi sometimes unhealed people don't know that they're unhealed.
Exactly.
Lalo na kung barrier ka.
Yeah.
Diba? So what if, yung kailangan nyo lang talaga is healing, companionship. Yun. So parang I like na itong book, it acknowledges na wala talagang equation yung love.
Yeah.
Pero you can't tell na, oh, it happened this way, so it's gonna go well. Or it happened this way, so it's probably not gonna end well. Diba?
Parang na-contrast ng ibang types of relationships, no?
Yeah.
Which I really appreciated. Another character that I saw a little bit of myself reflected in was Leela. In that she didn't feel comfortable or didn't want to really be herself around the people around her.
Oh, yeah.
But in Phoebe found someone who like, I don't know this person, but I can be myself. Not that that's a complete reflection of me, but I did go through a journey of feeling finally comfortable with like bearing all to my close friend, like yourself included. Whereas before, I would always want to be like, no, kaya ko, I'm capable, I'm doing okay. Like, yes, I'm going through this, pero kaya ko yan. Where I find like now it's so liberating and comforting to be able to have friends in your life that you can go to and just be like, just letting down all the walls and being like, this is me and my mess and I don't have any answers and I just want to rant or cry or, you know, yap, and that's okay.
We listen and we don't judge. Feeling ko lalo na kasi nung start din ng relationship namin ni Kat, parang we're both very put together beauty queens.
Yeah.
Parang we got our ducks in a row. So parang feeling ko kung magko-confide ako kay Kat, for example. Parang,
may solution na.
Oo. Or it has to be a logical problem na may mapupuntahan na equals this. Pero now it's like, yeah, the barest of ourselves.
And it's so comforting because I feel
yeah.
so seen, no? Like as in, sobrang comforting siya.
Pero how do we feel about the men in this book? Okay, starting with... Okay, gusto ko ilabas kasi talaga yung inis ko. Char! Let's get it! Okay, sa ex ni Phoebe, si Matt,
Yeah.
yung bumalik na ex nga, yung biglang nakakairita talaga yung mga lalaki na gusto nila ng simple, pero pag kami
may spice, gusto nang timpla lang ang spice, tapos after
ay, mahilig ka pala sa labuyo. Ganon. Di mo naman sinabi.
Yun na nga. I thought it was such a weird dynamic with this freaking husband as well, because like, yeah, like you said, he wanted the simpleness, he wanted the routine, but then you could see that he really enjoyed the spotlight of all the awards and the recognition by his peers, and he was really being recognized as someone who was really stellar in like what he does. And I don't feel like he navigated that well with his wife, like with how Phoebe recounted it, like sa mga school functions, parang she would just sit there habang nagsuspeech yung guy, tapos she'd feel like an accessory almost.
Na parang mag-dress down pa nga siya, diba?
Yes.
Na parang, oh, this dress is too much. Hindi naman isipin nila ako yung highlight.
Yeah. Talagang she really like shaped herself just to be a mirror to put the light back on her husband.
Pero couldn't that also be her fault?
Yes, that is also
Diba?
her fault for sure. But like, wouldn't the first step of her like stepping into her own be the encouragement from her husband?
Ako na-feel ko naman dun is the husband was walking on eggshells around her, na parang careful not to offend her, ganun, kasi alam niyang medyo may yung writing slump, writer's block siya. So parang he was just safe around her, and then parang there are lines, if I remember correctly, na he doesn't, parang pina-play down din yung achievement niya.
Yeah.
Ganon. Parang feeling ko naman si Phoebe din, siya, yun nahihiya siya kasi hindi rin siya yung, oh, but my wife she just released this book too, or she's also winning awards. So parang feeling ko yung lack of confidence din ni Phoebe.
Gets. So nag-adjust din yung husband. Okay, yeah.
Pero kasi I've been watching coincidentally mga relationship movies. Yun, nasa plane ako nung recently. It was the Anatomy of a Fall. Tapos it was this French film siya. Away mag-asawa. And then, you know, yung labo-labo eh. It's always gray. Tapos it was the girl naman who was excelling in her writing din.
Okay.
Tapos writer din yung husband, pero lagi siyang tawag sa kanya project man. Yung project lang, hindi niya natatapos.
So like you start all these new tasks or projects, but they never see its finish. Right?
Yeah. Tapos parang biniblame ng husband yung wife kasi parang, ayun nga, I had to adjust my schedule to homeschool our kid, ganun, so I can spend more time with the kids so you can write, and then when you're not writing, it's like you need time to think of what to write. Pero the guy also, parang hindi rin, lalo na ang hirap ko writer ka kasi you don't know when it'll come.
Yeah.
Parang pag-artista, for example, diba, you don't know when your big break or big project is actually it na. So, yung ending, parang yung wife also, from his project or idea, ginamit ng wife niya and finished it into a novel.
Okay.
Pero different naman. Like, the thought is there. Now, reflective of yung pinagdaanan nila sa life nila, which is the accident ng kid nila. Pero yung dynamic lang ng fight nila, yung blaming, na sino ba nagpaliit sa taong to? Sino
may fault?
Oo, who sucked out the life out of who? Parang both.
Yeah. Yeah, gets.
Oh, diba? So,
Yeah,
parang,
so complicated din siya.
Yeah.
It's an interesting film,
Oo. Yeah, pero puro talkie, so so yeah, yun lang, that's another thing that
layer
scares me about marriage. Yeah.
Well,
The blaming din na.
I
It's
know.
never clear cut. Kasi lalo na when you do things out of love, it's like the concept of why we don't like utang na loob. Diba? Kasi I thought we did this because you wanted to, or you really wanted to help, or because you love me, and then suddenly parang may bilang pala siya
resentment
sa'yo.
pala.
Yeah. So, I'm so scared. Getting married is scary.
I think relationships are scary because they're
Relationships are
so
scary.
complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we just gotta do our best to navigate it the best that we can.
Pero ba't nga ba tayo nainis kay Matt kung hindi naman pala natin ma-pinpoint?
Well, also, kasi, I also was really sad that Phoebe was going through, like, the failed rounds of IVF, and she really internalized it like she was the failure. Diba? And then, that's one of the reasons why the husband left, because my baby, yung ibang babae.
Oo, actually, ang inconsiderate sobra.
I
Parang
know.
di ba pwede pumili ka na lang ng iba, workmate mo, tapos meron pang anak yung babae na they can't have. Parang it's just so everything your wife isn't.
Yeah.
Or can't you just move to another state?
Diba?
And-
Instead, you have to work together and then have that awkward workplace conversation. What the hell?
Or be the bigger man and ikaw na lang mag-quit ng job mo kung ganun ka nga talaga ka-successful. Okay, naalala ko na. It's all coming back. Kung
It's
bakit
all
ako nainis sa
coming
lalaki.
back, it's all coming back to me now.
Okay. So, diba? Parang,
Yeah.
sana yun man lang na plano mo.
I know, just for the consideration. But instead, he even said, like, I thought you'd be okay. I thought you'd be okay. And it's like, sir!
Tao siya, ate!
I know. And
In
he
what
didn't even
world
check
would it
in
be
on
okay?
her.
Yeah.
Maybe siya yan. But yeah, that's what made me annoyed at him.
What about Gary?
Gary. I like Gary. I think he's very communicative. But also, my little alarm bells were going off because if I had a fiance and you're days away from getting married and you're literally checked into the hotel, your whole family is there, and then you are openly flirting with like another woman, that's like a ring, 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 ring. That's a really bad. I mean, like, Gary's boundaries were a bit iffy at best. But other than that, I like that he's communicative and that, like, he really looks out for his daughter and he's just trying to do the best that he can. And he seems to have a really good grasp on who he is. Like, what his shortcomings are, like, what he's good at. But yeah, just the boundaries with Phoebe was a bit for me.
Ako ayoko lang na masyado siyang parang passive follower. Although yun nga, linabas naman eventually na he
coping
just needed.
mechanism.
Oo. But still, parang unfair on Lila's end, diba?
Yeah.
Siguro kasi parang okay, he's done already
And he's
with
the older
great love and
one.
everything. Yeah.
She's so young. See, Lila's like,
Yeah,
what, 20...
Pre-30.
Yeah.
Ganon.
And Gary's like 30,
40?
40s.
Oo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So parang siguro he's like, oh, I'm so done with the great love stuff na. I just wanna have someone.
Yeah.
Ganun. Parang medyo, I just don't like the passivity of it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Gets.
Oh. Naka-all caps ako sa notes ko dito.
Shouting.
So parang ito yung note ko na, how self-focused or parang hindi self-centered pero yung self-centered.
Charades pala.
Geographically.
Geographically.
Locationally speaking. Our marriages. Kasi parang yung naging problema sa marriage nila is yung selves. They didn't get to meet each other anymore.
Yeah.
At some point. Tapos yun nga yung outpacing, outgrowing.
Yeah.
Tapos yun yung naging decision point nila to give up on each other or leave each other. So, pero kasi diba parang when you're married, you gotta just ride it out. I don't know.
I think
Pero
it's
ang
such
hirap.
an interesting dilemma because, like, the human condition, we create routines to make our life easier. Like, you know, it takes out all of that extra energy and focus that we need to put into our day-to-day because it makes it efficient, makes it easier, making our life simpler. But the thing is, I feel like as soon as we fall too much into routine, we go into autofocus. And when we're in autofocus, you kind of take the other person for granted. Because you're operating on that kind of shallow spectrum. You're not really, like, being present and being, like, checking in and, like, how are you really?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I know this person. I see them every day. They should be fine.
Alam mo
Like,
na
how's your day?
pag-upo mo
Good,
pala,
good,
ay, bad trip
okay.
siya ngayon.
Yeah.
Ay, masaya siya ngayon. You don't need to talk about it.
I think as soon as that intentionality and that present, like that effort to be present starts to, like, lessen and lessen, I think that's when it starts to spell disaster.
I'm so scared! Because yung mga wake-up calls na lang din of those moments is kung magka-big fight na kayo.
But I think fights are healthy, aren't they? Because they're
They
like
are.
reset buttons. Like,
Pero pagka-routinary na kayo masyado, tapos,
yeah.
alam mo yun, hindi na big deal yung fights. Parang kahit na i-plan out ko siya ngayon, iniisip ko talaga siya, like, kung ito mangyari, tapos I'm married na ganun, paano? Kaya bang iwasan na maging that passive? Or, diba?
Ang hirap to say because like who you will be in that moment will be different from how you are now. There's like a lot of different things that will play in and factor in. But I think it just matters that you have a partner, that you've already practiced conflict resolution with each other during dating and stuff, because I feel like that just gets magnified in marriage. And when you can't do it alone, you reach out for help, like either with your close circles or relational therapy.
Yeah.
Your book club.
Yep. Find comfort in books.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing that really, really scares me. Because I know that the solutions that we have now in para if I have a if wait lang, nalilito na ako. I'm not married.
Yes.
Like in my relationship now, di ba? Parang I'm sure that these solutions now won't work in the future necessarily, di ba? Kasi gamit na yung mga card na yun. Pero alam mo yun, like, I guess this book also gave me the comfort na nakakatakot ang marriage. And then alam mo yun, there's so much to figure out on your own pa. Kasi parang siguro dumating din ako sa point ng life ko na parang wait lang, parang sawa na akong pag-aralan yung life on my own. I feel like I learned my lessons already. But then, this book, faced with all my fears about marriage, na parang siguro, at the back of my mind, I'm like, I'll just deal with it later when it already happens. But like, now that I'm face to face with my greatest fears, it's like, ang dami ko pa palang dapat i-discover sa sarili ko na, you know, being comfortable in being alone, in stillness and nothingness. What if, kasi lalo na, for example, in the pages of our lives, we were crowned, 6-8 years ago. It was an exciting life. Pero yung pace ng life won't always be like that.
No, of
diba?
course not.
And yun yung pace natin ng life na lagari talaga tayo. And then now, it's a different pace na naman. So, yeah, I guess, until recently, I realized din na, totoo yung adage.
Same. Tomato.
Basta, yung kasabihan na lang po. Totoo pala yung kasabihan, hindi totoo, mabigat. Yung kasabihan na, change is the most constant thing
in your life.
In this life. And it's so scary, but, I learned to really just embrace it. Kasi it was hard to accept, especially coming from the adrenaline high pace that we were in. Yeah. Diba?
Yeah.
And then what if 20 years from now, it'll be parang our kids are grown up, or, diba, parang,
because like in the different chapters of life, diba? Like I always thought, like jumping off what you said, na kala ko, okay, for my early 20s, it's gonna discover myself, like who am I, and then once I get into a serious relationship, then it's gonna be me and the other person. Pero like that focus on self should always be present. Because otherwise, you end up just conforming to fit another person na baka that's not actually what they want pala, or maybe they'll change. And I think that's the scariest thing for me in the book. Na becoming a version of myself that wasn't really what I wanted, but it's not what I should do in the name of love for someone else, and then they change their mind at the end of the day. Yun ang scary for me. But when you think about it as well, it's like, for example, like ideally, God willing, like we have kids, and then what happens when those kids grow older and they leave the house, and then like we're alone? Or like what if, God forbid, like something happens to your partner and you're widowed? You know, like life can go in every single direction. So like imagine if you sacrificed or left yourself behind all those years ago, only to like be faced with catastrophe later on, and that's the only point that you realize, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Am I just a person in service of others but never like looking after myself? Like, so I know that we're just kind of airing our thoughts here on the very complicated topic of relationships. Pero I think it's just really having that focus on yourself, not to be selfish, but to know you so that when someone else comes into the equation, at least you can also be honest with them as much as you possibly can. Like to say that these are my needs. This is how I'm showing up for you.
Yeah.
Kasi, I mean, hopefully that would be...
Have you learned that now?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely in the process of learning that as well. Like, because life is just so unpredictable. And not to say that it's you against the world, but like through some of your hardest moments, they are the loneliest moments. And in the loneliest moments, you have yourself. And it can be very, very scary if you're in that moment and you're like, I don't even know who I am or what I want. That's scary.
And I would actually go so far as saying that you will never really fully know who you are.
Yeah.
I thought I knew who I was at 25.
Because it keeps changing.
Yeah, at 30, diba? So parang, I wouldn't, siguro, I hope that I learn not to treat it as a crisis or not to feel like it's a crisis.
Yeah.
Diba? Or sana I could see it one day na it's exciting.
Yeah.
Na, wait, I have to learn something pa about myself. And actually, a few weeks ago, I was in my car. And I was like,
driving down
ganun talaga pag
EDSA.
traffic. Pag Christmas rush, ang dami mo naiisip.
True.
Pero I forgot my, yung realization point ko. But I was thinking na, I still thank God for unanswered prayers and unrealized dreams. Kasi at the time na I feel empty or I feel like I need to find myself again, I can always go back to those dreams.
Yeah.
Like, those aren't left in your past naman. They're just waiting for you
to take them off the shelf.
Oo, na magtugma din yung right time mo to finally take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if you're in a marriage and then you're already in that phase as Phoebe, for example, and I'm sure that we will get there also, sis, na we will realize, oh wait, I am not who I am anymore. I miss my old self. And I guess this is a wake-up call and a time capsule also to future us. Na you can always go back to your old dreams. So that they're just there. They're just waiting for you to like finally act on it or something. Like there's no time limit on it. And if it's not old dreams, it's like these collected dreams that you have in every season of your life. And hopefully you have new dreams then for yourself, no matter how small or big. Maybe it's just like finishing a mural of a cross stitch or something. I don't know why I thought of
random.
that. Maybe that's one of my dreams. I used to do a lot of cross stitch.
We're just going full Lola now.
Yeah. Pero talagang na-immerse ko sarili ko sa future self ko being in a Lola outfit today. But yeah, time capsule. Hello, future Nicole and Kat.
Yeah.
Maybe mag-reunion podcast like Paris and
my gosh,
Nicole Richie.
10 years later.
Yeah. So yeah, pero also pala what I like about this book, kasi diba it gets so muddled na rin, like even as we're discussing it, na nakakatakot nga marriage, walang answer at all in whatever situation or circumstance, walang sure path na will ensure your success in a relationship. Pero the character here, yung sister ng would-be groom, sana si Marla, she's a very tricky character. Pero I realized that she is actually the answer. Na she was the one who made a choice.
Yeah.
Like, she cheated. And then, feeling
sa
niya,
husband niya.
Oo, sa husband niya. Tapos feeling niya kasi ang dami yung frustrations with her sex life. And yung sex life na-tackle din ni Phoebe na parang, I wanna be pinned to a wall. Ganon yung mga, I wanna be
fantasy
desired.
niya,
Ganon fantasy ng girls. In the book.
That pause though.
Biglang, wait lang.
G-rated.
So, parang I feel like it's such an honest confession talaga na I wanna be desired. And then, nag-send ng dirty text yung husband niya sa kanya na nagugulat si Phoebe kasi accidentally nababasa niya habang nag-waze siya or something.
And yun ang instruction ng therapist nila.
Oo. So parang
Couples
it's just so
therapy.
admirable na yung pinaka-wacky na character na hindi mo expect. She's so stiff in front of people. Like, yung facade niya, sobrang may disconnect. Like, high-nose siya, snob siya. Pero like, may kinky side pala siya. And maybe she's that kind of person, you know? Yung love language niya to be desired and pinned to a wall in a million different ways. Why not? Feminism, woo! And then, then the husband is willing to do it, for her then. Na parang alam mong ang awkward ng dirty text niya na parang hindi to praktisado. Yung gano'n like,
And also, like, it was interesting to, and like very like realistic to see that even though they're going to that effort to try and go out of their comfort zone and to kind of express desirability to each other, they're still awkward with each other. And she admitted, like, I know that I've broken his trust and I don't know how long it's gonna take, if ever I'll be able to rebuild it again, but I'm gonna try.
So
very
at the
raw
end of
and
the
real.
Day, it's a choice between two people who decide to continue to keep trying.
Yeah.
So I guess yun yung key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our future selves will know.
Read this again, future self.
So I hope you guys really like take the time to read this book. I know we've gone on a few tangents about the different themes, but it is really so well written. It's funny, it's relatable, it tackles a lot of heavy topics, but it doesn't feel heavy when you're reading it. And it's a quick, light read. Masaya pang vacation read since school vacations and all. Is this appropriate for school children? Maybe not. But
no.
No. Check your triggers, because again, there is a intention of unaliving. But that's really the only one, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And miscarriage. Slight mention. So just check that. But we really do recommend it. If you do read it, please let us know and comment below what resonated with you, or if anything that we've discussed today is something you're interested in, maybe drawing out for a future episode. We'd be happy to.
Yeah, and please share with us also like yung mga, because we're not married, yung mga marriage experiences nyo. I mean, there might be couples also in the comment section who would want to hear your stories that they're going through the same thing. So let this be an open forum for that. And you guys kept asking us where you guys could get the book, yung Betty before, kasi medyo hindi
hard to
siya
find dito sa
sikat
Pinas.
na book. So for this one, I'm not sure if Fully Book carries it.
It should,
But Fully Book, we've been messaging you to like collaborate with us to be like Book of the Month pick of Nicole and Kat, so that our readers can easily access.
Find it.
And makasabay sila mag-read with us. So we would love to partner with you, Fully Book. But thank you so much for sending us so many books.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully one of them will be our future Book of the Month. But for now, it is The Wedding People. So if you guys also want to send us a telegram, you can also do that at twostepsbackpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to the new year.
Yeah, and this book is actually perfect because it's rediscovering yourself again, starting over again. We know the holidays is not always the fun kind of holiday. So if you're that someone who is rethinking everything in their lives, you need a companion for that, this book is nice.
Yeah, because you know it's the season all about giving to others, but don't forget to give to yourself.
The best present in this world is you. That ribbon looks good on you, baby girl.
You're a gift. You're welcome. All right, guys, we love you and we'll see you next time.
Happy holidays.
Bye.